It's that time of the month, that good time where we get to look at what happened in the previous month in Star Citizen's development. Talking AI news, we're talking about new ship stuff, and most importantly, the part that really matters are these gigantic core gameplay sections. How are the features being developed, the ones that we aren't getting to see because Inside Star Citizen has been neutered? Talking engineering, the flight model, quantum travel, crafting, base building, FPS scanning, and all those other interesting big ticket items. Of course, we'll also be touching on narrative, R&D, mission design, all that kind of stuff, but there are definitely highlights during these videos. If you want a better kind of like short summary of that interesting gameplay part, that'll be available on the main Space Tomato channel, Space. But this is your overarching view, details and analysis, and my own sometimes useless commentary on what's going on. Starting with AI content, what we have here. AI content spent the majority of April preparing the release of Alpha 4.1.1, including the communications that players can now receive from mission givers. Oh, we'll hear more about that a little later in another category. Although seemingly straightforward, the underlying tech required to implement this within the various connected systems was highly complicated. The team also supported this development by preparing the captured audio and animation files in DataForge so the designers could implement them into the mission logic. See, it's a bummer to have to read about that in the monthly report and not hear about it on ISC or Star Citizen Live and like hear the devs talk about why it was so complicated. But at the same time, I understand they don't want to use dev time anymore to go on camera and talk when they could be building things that are very clearly feeling the deadlines on at this point. So this is like one of those knock-on effects of the game having taken too long. We can all say that we're willing to wait until it's done, as far as like we are as fans, but a large amount of people want to see it move forward. CIG themselves and the outside investors want to see Squadron 42 released. So at some point they are starting to have to scale back how much they can like dive into the details of this stuff. Which was, I think, the best part of this. Like, learning about the development has been, yeah, the best part of following this up until now. I look forward to playing it. But I don't think I ever would have had this good of insight on how a video game can be made if I hadn't followed Star Citizen. Continuing on, the team also supported this development by preparing, you already said that. In keeping with the general directive of looking for more ways to convey the PU's overarching stories, the team worked on a new approach that, when implemented, will be an exciting new way to update players on storylines and events. Okay. New directive of updating us on stories. Assuming it's not the Galactopedia or the journal, because we already know about those. Wonder what that might be. AI content also continued to refine NPC behavior packs and prototype lines for design to incorporate into future missions. Once refined, these scripts will be improved for capture. On the feature side of the AI teams, last month AI features focused on refining the juvenile Valacar. Improvements included changes to its idle roam behavior and navigation mesh to reduce the likelihood of it getting stuck. A cooldown was added to its melee attacks, with the creature now re-evaluating targets during the cooldown. Issues were fixed with the Valacar not looking at its target when emerging from the ground too. So these Valacar were dropped into the game incredibly basic. I only fought once or twice with them, but the way that they just kind of sat around, I could tell they were super basic, yeah, but seeing the fact that they just now added not just a cooldown, but the ability for the creature to re-evaluate their targets during that cooldown. Does that mean that these creatures would just, like, when would they re-evaluate their target? What were they doing? Technology also developed for the juvenile Valacar, technology developed for the juvenile Valacar also proved useful throughout April. Now, values can be set up in DataForge, which is the general purpose data editing tool, and passed to Subsumption. Yay, Subsumption mention. We gotta celebrate it. Yay, Subsumption. It goes back, dude. This is their behavior scripting engine. I'm not going to go into my whole subsumption rant this time. Let's just move on. Previously, these values would be set up in subsumption itself, meaning that it was hard for the designers to adjust the setup and create variations. By exposing more behavior values such as attack ranges, timeouts, and the use of specific melee and projectile attacks, the designers can now rapidly create variants for specific scenarios and gameplay needs. Okay. So they can create variants of the same enemy. But on the fauna side, I'm guessing, because they could do that, and I mean, I guess maybe they could always do that, but it was difficult. Now they can just more easily create variations. Hopefully that means we also see NPCs acting a little bit better. We need spaghetti code visuals. Sorry, man. No pasta today. All right, for human combat AI, focus was on first reactions and escalation, including resolving bugs with the new system, adding and refining new reaction wildlines, and implementing new methods for controlling which events NPCs respond to. The latter is useful for specific combat scenarios where NPCs are required to focus on a specific task rather than getting drawn into combat. That'd be great to see more of that in missions, NPCs that are trying to do something and you have to stop them. Refinement and polish continued on compromised cover reactions, while new prototype technology was implemented to lower weapons when friendly fire is detected. Alright. AI from the Game Intelligence Development Team. This is more your AI R&D kind of stuff. In April, the Game Intelligence Development Team worked on various star script movements, including allowing users to right-click task extension links and search for an existing task to connect it to. Users in this case is a developer in CIG. They are talking about a tool that they're making so that developers can more easily use it to do the things they need to do. They also added edge scrolling to the editor then when dragging links and implemented the ability to add a task between two others without manually reconnecting them. For StarScript, the first pass on master graph visualization and editing was completed. GID also delivered, that's Game Intelligence Development, also delivered their vision for a new tool currently called the Density Profiler. This prototype will help validate the visual presentation of the tool, the use of thresholds on metrics, and how to interact with multi-resolutions. Okay. Finally, the team continued their research discussions on the mission system. The objective remains to provide the designers with tools to help them easily create entertaining missions for players. We like entertaining missions. I think they're doing a decent job on missions this year, especially compared to previous years. Looking forward to it continuing. And hopefully it sounds like we're getting more in like subsequent patches. AI tech team. This is the AI stuff that gets worked on that's usually the furthest away from getting to our hands, although sometimes there's small level tech that gets through quickly. AI tech progressed with the Pathfinder system, making various improvements and cleaning up requests involving multiple start and end locations. Based on a path's start orientation, the devs can now readjust the initial animation for better continuation when exiting a usable. For the movement system, okay, this is a big one. AI tech are improving chase target requests to allow the chasing of ground vehicle targets alongside NPCs. Chasing of ground vehicle targets alongside NPCs? The challenge with this is that the position of a ground vehicle could be outside of a navigation mesh triangle. Okay, so this is like getting AI to chase ground vehicles? Basically, like if we get into our Ursa, there's a chance that they'll follow us, maybe? I think I'm reading too much into that. On the subsumption side, the team continued to create a synchronizing and serializing subsumption behavior state and behavior variables. Subsumption. On that previous one about the vehicles moving, I don't think that's them chasing us away from locations, because I think that's not just ground vehicle related. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe somebody in the comments can tell us. Multiple improvements were also made to both triangle meshed navigation and voxel 3D based navigation. For triangle mesh, triangle generation issues were fixed that were propagating problems into pathfinding and navigation raycasts. For 3D voxel based navigation, the team began utilizing the resulting resulted voxels and mesh to improve ship AI collision avoidance. Yeah, we need to see AI navigating in space in this game. Whether it's in ship or EVA, space feels dead, and it's only going to feel more deader until that happens, because they're adding more and more NPCs into ground locations and ground vehicles and turrets and outposts and all this stuff. And then we fly up into space and there's nothing. Maybe you run into a player every once in a while, but don't you guys feel like space is just really, really, really unpopulated in this game, when people have been flying spaceships in that system for like 100+ years, probably a much longer, just officially 100+ years? Like, there should be a lot of traffic there, and we don't have it. And so the game feels weird because all you see are players, and I mean, there aren't that many players compared to the size of the game. Various bugs were fixed for ship AI also, some relating to newly exposed functionality like flight mode. We will talk about this in the core gameplay section. This is important right here. And spawning or despawning of voids. Improvements were made to cover generation too, such as excluding door entities from the cover generation process and reducing the amount generated for long walls. The team is currently checking ground surface inclination to discard cover in areas that are not almost flat. A new nav spline creator tool was implemented that will allow designers to record player ship movements and transform the captured data into a nav spline that can be utilized by ship AI. Whoa. I wonder how robust that is. I guess it's just talking about splines and not behaviors, but I'm just thinking, could they like use player data for that? Can they capture player data and aggregate it into the ship AI so that the ship AI can work on whatever it is that it's doing already? But maybe make it look a little more, actually no. If anything, we want them to look more AI landing. Players suck at landing. They also talk about this during the core gameplay section too, so we'll get to that. Starscript functionality was also extended as requested by the designers, creating new missions and behaviors. Cool. Yeah, it's going to lead to a lot more crashed ships if they do that. Animation team. Last month, the animation team continued to support the studio-wide initiative of focusing on content for the PU. They also, what does that mean? They also progressed with the Valakar, supported various new mission givers and world NPCs, and began working on a new creature. Ooh, a new creature, another type of cow. Art from the ship side. All right, folks. All right, file in. This is where it gets interesting. This is where most of the excitement for these reports comes from. It's not even the full ship section. It's just the art section, but still. What's more fun than art? In the EU, the vehicle team, the ship team, whatever you want to call them, focused on closing out tasks for Invictus launch week, including 3 new ships planned for release at the event. The MISC Starlancer TAC was also completed for its upcoming flyable release. They just showed us these 3 new vehicles or ships. I mean, they say ships, so maybe there's something else. But we saw at least 2 of these vehicles in ISC. That is the Anvil Asgard, which you can find. Oh boy, there are probably easier ways to do this. We can see them here. Here's the Asgard. Is the new ship from Anvil. It's mostly looking like a Valkyrie. You got a little bit of a different thruster orientation. I think this is maybe a missile turret on the top or something. I don't know. There's stats about this out already. I haven't looked at them, but you can see the ship here. So this is one of the ones they're probably talking about. And then another one would be the new Guardian MX. We could just go to the very end where they show them all. So yeah, then we got the Guardian MX over here, which I think looks leaps and bounds better than the Guardian, if I'm not mistaken. This is the other vehicle that they're bringing in at IAE, obviously, but it's not a ship. Now, they're a little loose with the way they use these words lately, but I do think that means that there's still one more ship they're going to show. Obviously, they want there to be a surprise. They don't want to show everything all before the event. So I'd expect one more thing. Not sure if it would be, planned for release, so it'll be straight to flyable. And there might actually even be a concept. Who knows? They might reveal a new concept ship too. Oh, did they put these ships in the PTU already? Yeah, see, I think I don't think the 3 ships include the TAC, because they say including 3 new ships, and then they say the Starlancer TAC was also completed. So the TAC I don't think is included in this sentence. No, I do not think that the Idris is coming out. Honestly, I don't care if the Idris is coming out. I was just telling somebody, I think I said this during the podcast maybe. I made a joke about the Idris and offended somebody. People are real passionate about this ship. I don't really care that much. If it comes out, cool. If it doesn't, that's too bad. Personally, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference because they're still pretty behind on capital ship gameplay compared to where they wanted to be. Progress was also made on 4 unannounced vehicles. The first is progressing through white box towards full production, while the second is approaching its gray box review and LOD 0 complete. LOD 0 is basically just highest level of detail. The third, which was briefly shown on a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen, is progressing through concept. The fourth vehicle, the first in a while from its existing manufacturer, has been formally kicked off. So, some telling statements here. One is that one of these is from Inside Star Citizen. Now, I'm not sure if that concept... See, this was Star Citizen Live. But maybe that is what they're referring to. I don't think they've shown us anything else anywhere else, right? It has to be here. They haven't shown us like a concept or something on Inside Star Citizen. I think they're just calling this Inside Star Citizen for some reason. But it could be one of these ships that we saw. The fourth... See, this is really strange, man. I don't know if this is an error for them or not. Because I see you guys also mentioning the Kruger ship. And the first vehicle in a while from an existing manufacturer would definitely hint at Kruger. But why didn't they say that this was also seen on a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen? And it's just weird the way that they phrase this. Because this wasn't Inside Star Citizen. And if this is the Kruger ship, this was also shown on that same episode. We got that right here. So, I don't know. I'm guessing this is one of the ships they're working on. And this is just like a weird description of it. But then that would imply, yeah, I don't know how to take this, man. It's a weird one. We're also seeing, though, that there is something going through white box and something going through gray box. Those very well might be from CitizenCon that we saw at the end of last year. So that could be this. It could be this. Wait, is this the gray cat? I actually didn't even confirm that. Is this the whatever it is they're introducing? Oh wow, it's got 4 wheels. Weren't people speculating these were treads? Yeah, it's got the lights. It's got the handles. Did they remove the mud flaps in the back? It's interesting. It looks kind of like a mini Ursa almost. So yeah, this one is coming out. So that's confirmed. We've been seeing that. Could be this. Could be this. Could be this. Could be this. You already know about these. In fact, they talk about these too. So there are some options this could be. We're not really entirely sure. So that was the first sentence of the art section on ships. Let's continue. Progress was also made on 4 unannounced ships. No, that's not true. That was the third sentence. I got through that. The Outland Pioneer continued through pre-production and white box phase. The modular kits were solidified alongside some structural changes to improve the flow and movement through the ship. The team also continued to define the core visual elements to inject the consolidated Outland art style. And boy, oh boy, have we seen that art style over the last couple of months. Originally, we saw some stuff from the Pioneer, and I think it laid the groundwork for what it was going to look like. I actually think they did a good job of staying consistent with this style, even with the other CNOU ships, that being the manufacturer that makes this ship. God, Affinity. So this is one of the original concepts art, and you can see it's got this sort of hard line, hard angle, bright, colorful, but still very professional manufacturing looking vibe to it. everywhere you looked, it kept going with this. You got trellises all over the place and structural supports that are visible. Utilitarian, but definitely a more high-tech look than something like Drake, or even in some cases RSI. It feels kind of like a combination between RSI and CNOU, or Argo. RSI and Argo. So that's what it originally looked like. Now we got the redesign of the exterior, which you can see here, and I can put up the old version next to it. Actually, those are terrible. I don't know why. That's what they did to compare the two. Let me show you a better comparison. Much, much better view of this thing that they decided not to show for some reason. So you can see that the shape of this ship changed on the exterior. And I'm not going to tell you whether you like the new one or the old one more, but it changed. So deal with it. But then, after that, we got to see quite a bit of... I keep closing my windows. After that, in this most recent video where we talked about the other ship getting worked on, these concepts, we also saw quite a bit of the interior of the Pioneer now, at least concept-wise. They've gone from orange to yellow, but you can see that it still sticks to that sort of high-class utilitarian look, very structurally supported everywhere you look, very bright and exciting, but still pretty utilitarian. Trellises, shapes, stuff like that. So this is mostly what we know about the interior of the ship, but it's being worked on. It's been in white box since all the way back in November when they started it, and it is still in white box, still getting worked on, still well ways away, guys. This is not coming this year. This is probably like an end of 2026 at the earliest kind of ship, but it is a big one. It's gonna. This is the sort of ship that can't release into the game unless the gameplay is there, because it's gonna change the game. Holy crap! It's quite OP, and it's gonna take a lot of people to make work. On top of the ships that we talked about, numerous paints were also created for new and existing ships for release in coming events. The North American content team began closing out 2 new variants with polishing and bug fixing. An all-new ship progressed too, with recent decisions being made on cargo capacity and tractor beam placement. A new tractor beam focused ship is good fun. It's an all-new ship. Doesn't necessarily mean unannounced, but who knows. They've also got 2 new variants coming out of ships. They're loving their variants this year. Honestly, I see the Asgard as kind of a variant. I know they won't call it that, but it is working off the Valkyrie because it's easier work done, and I'm not surprised to see 2 more variants going through the works. The RSI Apollo continued through the gray box phase with new concepts for the med bay area and the bridge. The Apollo is a big crowd favorite, one that has been introduced for quite a while, and I think is one of the more nice looking medium-sized ships in the game. But it relies heavily on medical gameplay actually being good. And as of right now, it's not in the best state. So I do wonder how this ship is going to release and what they're going to do with medical when it does, if they're even going to touch it. And what happens if they don't? Personally, though, I would love to use this ship as my general runabout when I'm out in different star systems. But I think CIG is starting to run the risk of more people like myself turning to medical ships to be their everyday daily drivers to do things. Just because if they have cargo space, if it has a weapon on it, and if it has the ability to respawn, it is a very, very, very valuable ship. So I think they need to come up with ways to deter people from using these ships for everything. But I'm still going to try. Finally, for ships, work continued on the RSI Perseus to define the interior look and feel, and ensure it functions as intended. And if you want to know what its intended function is, just look at one of its marketing concept images. They're pretty straightforward. This is a combat ship. This one's going to hurt. And I don't think it's really meant to be ramming people. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they'll do something with that. I think that's more just a picture to show it killed this thing and now it's flying through its dead body, because what more can you do to humiliate somebody? But the ship itself is pretty cool. If you don't know it, I mean, it's somebody's first time, maybe, every time, possibly, I hope. It's got a bunch of missiles and a bunch of guns on it, but its main thing is I think these two huge guns on the front of it. One down here, or one up here and one down below. Basically, it's like medium to large size ship busting guns. And this is one of the large combat Doritos, Danger Doritos from RSI, in that kind of lineup of Perseus, Polaris, and Galaxy people are expecting. This one's not coming for Invictus, clearly, as we could see. But it is probably coming towards the end of this year, I think. Okay, moving on to core gameplay. This is what I'm talking about. The juice. This is the good stuff. Let's go. Several of the core gameplay teams spent the month stabilizing and improving the new space-themed missions in Alpha 4.1.1. This included closing out the first iteration of several new features, such as communication notifications and new mission rewards. We saw some talk about this here with like getting Ace Combat pilots helmets from these, but ultimately the biggest indication of this work is obviously yesterday's Inside Star Citizen, where they talk about 60 plus new combat missions where you can hunt the Polaris and ambush NPCs and go on patrols. And I think this is going to be good background yum yum fast food kind of content for Star Citizen. So I'm glad to see it coming in and to see mission rewards linked to them. That's the more we can get stuff that people can earn in game, the better for the game actually surviving. Continuing on, outside of new content, the team continued to monitor feedback from the PTU to address community concerns as quickly as possible. As always, we are infinitely thankful to the players who take their time to contribute to testing leading up to a release. Recent tasks following feedback included investigating new issues with quantum travel and reoccurring problems with freight elevators, ship claiming, and inventory flow. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, those are the big ones, aren't they? Elsewhere, the teams analyzed performance captures, seeing where gains could be made for both client and server frame rates, especially focusing on new content. There are several more ongoing initiatives across the core gameplay teams that are either for the next few releases, longer term, or for Squadron 42. However, much of the work done for Squadron 42 will also be relevant to Star Citizen, so these teams work across both projects. So, sentences like these just... I don't like them as much after reading the financial report and literally seeing them be like, yeah, we pulled resources from Star Citizen. I know they're trying to bring more back to Star Citizen, but if you took these monthly reports away, there would really be no way for us to know that they're working on Star Citizen's core. These segments have become so valuable to understanding what's actually going on with Star Citizen's development, because everything that they do to cover the game is now about what's happening in the next month. Every show, every Spectrum post, most Spectrum posts, all of these like roadmap updates, even the roadmap itself, all of it is just focused on what's immediately ahead, because I guess they've realized that that's all most people care about nowadays, immediate satisfaction. But as far as like feature development goes and making real progress on the game, these are so valuable. And when I read something like this, where, yeah, the work for Squadron's going to go into Star Citizen, part of me is like, yes, I get that. That is absolutely true. Things like radar and interactions and all that stuff does benefit Star Citizen. But, like, look at this. In just this patch watch, we're getting an update that supposedly makes interaction work more smoothly. But like, that's kind of what was supposed to happen from Squadron 42's interaction system coming into Star Citizen 12 months ago. So, yeah, it's going to benefit Star Citizen, but to what extent? How much? Anyways. Elsewhere, core gameplay added updates to the engineering UI screen, including countdown warnings for catastrophic explosions and reinstated and advanced the diagnostic screen MFD. Toes. I'm really excited to read more of this engineering stuff. I'm going to touch on all of it before we start diving into what they're saying here. Further improvements were also then made to ship death. For example, fatal damage behaviors now require a significant impact. In addition, catastrophic misfires can now be triggered by nearby items failing due to severe damage. Improvements to deactivating soft death were also completed, and its effects can be enabled separately. Lot to take in there. So engineering-wise, let's start with the first part, which is the UI screen is getting countdown warnings for catastrophic explosions. This is telling me that they are continuing to go more and more into making ships last longer before they blow up. I think one of the biggest things people are so worried about in this game when they talk about how often you die or how long the game takes because you have to start over and stuff is that you can nudge a piece of wreckage on the ground and your ship blows up and you're done. Or you can like scrape the hangar door and you lose a whole wing and you have to fly back to somewhere that you can repair. Hopefully, considering you're flying out of a hangar, it's right behind you, but still the idea remains. If you take some damage, you either die or you have to go somewhere to repair yourself. And these sorts of things show us more and more how they want there to be less dying. It even continues here. Fatal damage behaviors now require a significant impact. You're not just going to blow up because you got hit by a couple of small things. You got to get hit with like a railgun shot or a size 10 torpedo, or you got to slam into the ground going incredibly fast, that kind of thing. This is also something they've said about death in the game for our character's perspective. Right now, we die really easily, but as we continue on, you'll notice that time to kill keeps going up and up because ultimately they want it to be hard to kill someone, but not so hard to down someone. I think this is kind of reminiscent of how a lot of FPS games happen now. There's a down state instead of just straight up killing people, and how that down state works kind of is indicative of how they want the game to work. And I think for this game, they want death to be a very significant thing, but they also want you to deal with consequences in the sense that you're taking injuries, that you're getting downed and have to call for help or get a medic to come find you. So same thing I think is happening here with ships. They want these ships to take a missile or take some shots or get completely disabled through thrusters, but still have players be able to hop out and do some repairs or call for some friends to bring by a new component, or even have a component in their own cargo bay that they can run down the hallway to, grab that component, put it in their ship, power it back up, and escape before the people board their ship. This is a huge expansion, I think, of what ship gameplay will be, but it's also a possibility that this stuff comes in game and it doesn't work how they want it to. That's how we got to master modes. They did the same thing, natural deterrence to drive gameplay with high-speed combat. It didn't work, so they went to master modes. So hopefully the engineering experience does teach people to take more care of their ships. Hopefully it rewards us for doing that, and hopefully they can get their persistence figured out so that when we do, it actually matters compared to people who don't. So I do think also, if our ships can take more and more damage, and they want an economy based around repairing those ships and offering the materials to do so, you're going to have to make it harder for people to claim those ships via insurance too. So there's like several things that are really going to need to be figured out to make this make sense. But I also think this is a key part of making ships like the Idris and Polaris make sense. Engineering is your most awaited feature. It's why you back the game. Same here, man. The whole idea of a power system in games is still painfully novel. You can find some games where it works, and some games will do it not in an immersive way, but in a way where certain things function on a power system. You can plug stuff in. But overall, there still are just not enough games where the things you're using actually use resources, and you have to figure out how to manage those resources. I look forward to that. So yeah, that's engineering, and I think those are significant movements there. Moving on to the flight model, the flight experience, the old master modes. No, that's more than master modes. As you'll hear here, the team enabled the new spaceflight mode in their feature streams. I know I said this wasn't about master modes, but I genuinely think that means that they are now using the flight model that doesn't include master modes on the dev side, maybe. Hopefully, we'll see if that has more confirmation sometime soon, but they might be working on getting that into the game now. They're currently resolving bugs related to AI ship motion alongside outstanding work on the takeoff and landing experience. We read about that in the AI section. Would love to hear more about the landing and takeoff experience improving. Several new game modes were added to allow them to test the new flight model in the future, probably so that they could test them alongside each other. Oh, due to the data setup, both the new and existing models can be separated and tested without affecting one another. Yeah, I'm hoping we can do that too. Like we can get the new flight model in the EPTU so we can see what the new and old ones feel like next to each other. Continuing on from the flight model, an overhaul of control surface tech began. As such, flying in atmosphere and especially gliding is now much more realistic thanks to believable aerodynamic behaviors, such as the nose falling in turns or accurate drag on large AOAs, especially in regards to changing atmospheric densities. There's still outstanding work on the control system and interaction with thrusters and the AI systems though. Somebody asked, on my recent video on Space Tomato Gaming, they asked, people want flight to be harder, and control surfaces is not necessarily just about making flight harder. It's both a realism thing, you know, aerodynamics in ships. It's also, again, like engineering. It's a little bit of a deterrent. They want you to choose your ship based on how it performs in space and in atmosphere. And they need to make space and atmosphere work differently. Partially because, obviously, that enhances the experience, but mostly because space and atmosphere are kind of different, and ships act differently in them. So, like, if you're flying a plane, you're going to fly better than if you're flying a brick. And that's what this is really focused on. And I'm excited for it. I'm interested in seeing how people use aerodynamics to do cool maneuvers in ships that we couldn't do before. April also saw an update to the new quantum travel tech. They're just hitting all the big topics here. In addition to adding a slow speed variant of quantum boosting, the devs resolved several bugs and improved reliability and performance. It also features improved ways for the mission designers to control the flow for AI ships. Further work will focus on improving the current experience and make it compatible with multiplayer. Okay, so the quantum tech is working for them in single-player environments, but not multiplayer, which like really kind of drives me nuts on the inside, if I'm reading that correctly, because this yet another feature that was supposed to be polishing for Squadron and coming over the PU, and here we are. Quantum travel is one of the more annoying parts of this game right now. It was built for a much smaller version of this game with a lot less locations, and you can really tell. Like, they've been doing some stuff to make it work better, but it is a pain to use at this point. The most interesting thing that we see here is a mention of a slow speed variant of quantum boosting. We already knew quantum boosting was going to be slower than quantum travel, so now seeing it be an even slower form of quantum boosting, or at least as an option, gives me the feeling that they are trying to be as lenient as possible with us in still flying in that kind of like conventional range of speed that's like 1,000 to 2,000 meters per second, but not normal ship flight. And so quantum boost is allowing for even slower speeds, which will probably allow us for moving around in upper atmospheres, around planets, around asteroid belts, and other things like that. Because I don't think that real quantum will work on asteroid belts anymore. I think real quantum will cut out when you reach an asteroid belt, and then quantum boosting will have to be how you get around there. And it's going to be interesting to see how it works. I don't know really what to expect, but I'm glad that we're getting updates on it here in the monthly report. As long as we're seeing more updates on these features, we know the feature development is going on. The next best thing we can hope for is that it pops up in a roadmap post. Really, we don't know when these features are going to be in the game until like maybe a month beforehand or 2 months beforehand. And that is a very, very different change for Star Citizen from before. I would definitely, it's hard to know when this stuff will be coming out. But I think some of it will be this year. I just don't know what. Core gameplay also optimized the scan wave mechanic to be as responsive as possible. with focus on overwhelming contact environments where hundreds or thousands of contacts are processed in a short period. The scan wave mechanic in this game, I think, is really cool. I love how they've done it. It's always been what I like for like a scan, but I hope that they can make it look a little bit more refined, kind of like Death Stranding's looks. They do it mostly the same, this one and Death Stranding, but Death Stranding's goes slower because the scale is smaller. So I hope that they can figure out a way for CIG's FPS Scanning and Radar to show up really cool on the environment when we do it. Ship one already looks great. What interests me here is when they talk about thousands of contacts in your screen. Alongside this, the team also continued to polish FPS radar and scanning gameplay via regular playtests. They're in here just straight up playing with this at this point in QA and polishing it up. Who knows? Maybe FPS rating and scanning and radar is a 4.2 feature. Maybe we do see it in a couple months. April's work included adjusting the detection formula, highlighting visuals, and disabling the influence signature system to improve it to better serve the intended gameplay. We're seeing a lot of polish on this system over the last couple months. All right, economy. Let's go. Last month, the economy team were involved in the new content coming in Alpha 4.1.1, including items and vehicles for Invictus. They also supported the design of several new mission archetypes, some of which have the chance to impact the universe in a more permanent manner. What does that mean? New mission archetypes, to me, mean like investigation missions, maintenance missions, like those are new archetypes. Our archetypes we already have are FPS combat, ship combat, cargo hauling. Several new mission archetypes is more than 2. So does that mean we might actually see more than 2 new types of missions come in sometime soon? That would be nice. Although I guess we kind of have. The patrol missions is considered a new archetype. So maybe it's not as big a deal as it seems. The team also began looking into making the economy more dynamic, testing various things. They said, "We are studying different economic models from history and fiction to get a better impression of how the economy will feel when it is fully fledged." I think at this point, they're just not ever going to reference the first quantum. I don't know if they're ever going to reference any of their quantum talks anymore. This is an interesting one, though. I hope they can do another Star Citizen live on economy, because it's so important. The dynamic economy is so freaking important. We talk all day and night about consequences and stuff. Money is the most important consequence, right? Gotta be something about the money that makes us do things differently. I look forward to seeing what they have to say about that soon. Soon, please. The team also discussed the next iteration of item recovery and how it will influence the prices and exclusivity of different items. Work then continued on the back-end shop refactor that will provide the tools to start building a better shopping experience. Oh boy, it's gonna be a while. Finally, the economy and data solution teams continued to create a comprehensive data plan to provide better and faster information about what players like the most. Well, you know, the economy sections, on one hand, I'm like, really, I love them because economy good. I'm glad that they're looking at different economic models and like getting a good hold of this. On the other hand, though, I'm so tired of waiting for economic significance. In their defense, I don't think that's all on the economic team. I think a lot of that is on the persistence of the game. Economy doesn't matter too much if it keeps resetting for you. So I won't give them all the flack for that, but I remember when we were maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they were starting to test dynamic price changes for fuel and rearming. And I understand if maybe they got into that and then they decided not to do that model and they wanted to do something else. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, we're doing this. Okay, it gave us that feedback, so we're going to do this. Okay, that's not working. We're gonna refactor the economy or whatever they want to say. But we never got that. They just kind of never told us anything else about the economy, and it never got updated. And I think even cargo hauling actually got worse over time because of economic changes. They eventually pooled all the servers into the same economy, so then you couldn't like trade stuff in your server because somebody on another server sold all their stuff. And we're past a lot of those problems. But through all of that time, they still haven't said anything about the actual dynamic setup of the economy. So they can keep saying these types of things in monthly reports, but I don't know when it's all going to happen. It seems like they're waiting for a lot of other stuff to kick in, like insurance, like crafting, like even just getting all their points of interests figured out, their factions. They've just kind of not talked about it because it hasn't been important, but they didn't say it wasn't important. They just didn't say anything. I know a lot of other things are waiting for server meshing, and I think there was one point where they released an update, and it basically confirmed. They were like, yeah, there's so many things that need to be accounted for that we just don't want to do the economy right now. And we all took it as, okay, server meshing and everything associated with it. So I'm sure it is coming along now that we're in this new era of Star Citizen development and them trying to release content and get ready for 1.0. But since we don't get good updates on videos, it's hard to know realistically where this is going. Like, just look back at this time last year, and just from Star Citizen Alive alone, you can see all of the interesting information we were getting from the publishing to the EVA and personal interaction system. This one had a lot of conversation about like gameplay systems. We got one here. At one point there is the UI features team talked about something. These guys talked about basically all the big ticket items coming to the game. Like, comparatively, we just don't get a lot of good updates on what's coming. So this is all we know about economy. And so this is how we react to it. Anyways, on to mission design. This is a long monthly report read through. Sorry, guys. With most of their recent fundamental tech work complete, the team focused on improving mission quality. For example, players in the PTU will see the return of comms notifications. While the previous system used for Xenothreat and Siege of Orison was difficult to update and maintain, it's now a lot easier to implement content into the game. The team are planning to slowly roll out this update across the game to globally improve mission quality. Alpha 4.1.1 will see new mission types focused on PvE ship battles. We've seen these. These include Ambush, which see players set up a trap to kill a priority target, and Patrol, where players travel between different coordinates and take on activities at each point. Work on these missions also allow the team to find and fix long-standing issues with spawning ship-based reinforcements, so ship wave missions should now function better. Oh, that's good. So they were just never showing up before. In April, a few of the designers began fixing missions that missed the 4.0 release. Hopefully some of these will be in good enough state for the release soon, but we are committed to the quality and stability of the missions. Give us the Covalix shipping hub mission again. Or that's already back in, huh? Updates were also made to Wicklow, including the things they are willing to trade. To prevent the farming of rare components, ship rewards by Wicklow will now only feature their unique paint, while the components will be added to the Emporium. Okay, interesting. Narrative. In April, the narrative team's main focus was on a suite of new missions and support for Invictus launch week. Looking ahead, the team prepared for their next capture session, which involved confirming trigger lists with design, writing scripts, casting actors, and coordinating with the various downstream departments tasked with processing the captured materials. They will also be recording unique dialogue for an upcoming event, as well as adding a new NPC archetype for use across multiple missions. That's not talking about Gilly, right? No, they wouldn't be recording unique dialogue for that. So that must be something that's coming later in the year. Another NPC mission givers they've been talking about in these reports. The team also entered the polish phase on locations that will be arriving later this year, improving the narrative flow of the area and helping the branding team with the final signage pass to create a more immersive environment. We did just see on this roadmap roundup released just a couple days ago that they've added a new sandbox location and a new sandbox activity to the progress tracker. To give you some context as to what that could be, the Hathor locations and all the stuff surrounding that was a sandbox activity. So this could be something else that is equal to Hathor locations in significance. It could be something a little less, a little more, but it is going to be a sandbox-oriented location that will likely devolve into combat scenarios until they can get their security and reputation system figured out. but ultimately is meant to live in the game permanently and add more things for you to do over time as you find yourself in that area. I wonder if it is at all related to the mission giver they're working on. Additionally, they continued to work on 2 new location archetypes, guiding this design and art with backstory elements to help drive the tone as well as establishing story details. Also, with 2025 well underway, the team dedicated time to progressing their 2026 planning, including new story opportunities. I'm glad they're planning 2026 stuff right now, and we don't have like a big 2-month gap next year where they're not already working on that stuff. Location archetypes is interesting. This could mean a lot of different things. Not sure what exactly it might mean, but we know that they've split their locations up into 2 things, depots and outposts. We also know that in terms of outposts, they have outlaw, lawful, and I think unaffiliated types. I'm not sure. I don't remember if those are the archetypes or the category. But then they also have another segment of variation with these locations. So I'm not sure if this means an entirely different location for a new type of thing or different art dressing or what it might mean, but they are working on a lot of location stuff and a lot of like mission stuff in the narrative department. Finally, the narrative team made an appearance on Star Citizen Live to answer questions about this year's ongoing storylines and to throw a giant wrench into our understanding of reputation. Let's move on to online technology, yeah? I'm just not even going to get through this freaking reading. In April, the Live Tools team worked on various features, including new sanction types and improvements to scheduling global system messages. The network team delivered the Entity Teleport feature, which is used to move replicated entities that may or may not be streamed out. This enables systems like Respawn to directly reparent a player to a medical bed without needing to wait for it to stream in, streamlining and simplifying the Respawn process. The team is currently finalizing the related API. Can that please mean that Respawn just works how we expect it to? Because wowzers, man. I just want to respawn in the ship that I set my respawn to. R&D wise, in April, various improvements were made to the lightning evaluation that's part of the Cloud and Atmosphere Ray March. Hey, we haven't heard really much about the weather system getting developed. As such, the energy fall-off function was generalized and an extra highlight was added to separate the center of bright lightning from much dimmer long-range impact. We're going to have energy fall-off functions for lightning. I guess that would make it easy to decrease the brightness as it goes on. For dynamic weather, the temporal stability of the CPU accessible weather map was improved. Extra helpers for CPU weather queries were implemented, and robustness was improved when creating query contexts. Love to hear about some weather updates. Heck yeah. You guys remember the weather stuff they showed? Anybody not gotten to see that? I'll give you a quick look at it. It's actually quite nice. So this is all just part of the new Planet Tech, but weather is part of it, so, you know. Yeah.
Dirt properly responding to light, reflections, and rain droplets, making it's getting really ominous and loud in here. I can feel the danger. I think we should let this play out in the game.
We need to leave now. Get back here. I'm getting out of this suit now. Powering up and flying out. We'll need to switch to IFR. See you on the other side.
There's our lightning. That's what I was looking for. Just this guy getting slapped out of the sky.
It's getting very sparky out here. Recommend deviation.
Dude, imagine being just that lame. Like, yeah, I flew through a cloud with an aurora and I died because of lightning. Come on, man. All right, let's finish this thing up. Work also began on adding texture streaming support for volumetric cloud and ground fog rendering. Sun disk rendering behind sufficiently dense planetary clouds was improved and should result in softer transitions than before. Similarly, the sun disk behind gas clouds should occlude correctly again. Oh, that's good. This fix corrects animated noise and banding that was observable when looking at dense clouds with the sun shining through. Yeah, that was ugly. I'm very glad they fixed that. UI. Last month, the UI team worked to implement unique UI styles for several upcoming vehicles. They also supported upcoming events and created environmental UI to support the gameplay and storytelling. It's freaking awesome that we're starting to get manufacturer customized UI in this game. We talked about that for a freaking long time. Glad that's happening. And on the VFX side, last month, VFX worked towards completing their tasks on vehicles and weapons for Invictus launch week. Pre-production VFX work also began for an upcoming major release, including locations, creatures, and weather. There you go. That's the monthly report for this month. There was a lot of stuff. I mean, this is arguably one of the longest readings I think I've ever had. I got a lot of distractions in there. We did a lot of talking, but there was a lot to talk about here. I mean, between the quantum travel stuff, the engineering stuff, the ships that are being worked on, and even the mission and narrative things going on, there's a lot of interesting movement in the game right now, both long and short term. And that makes the monthly report some of the more interesting parts of following the project at the moment. I hope we can get some more interesting Star Citizen lives soon, but these are the big drops of information. And I think we got a lot of good stuff here. The one thing we didn't hear about here, which is weird to me, was base building and crafting. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that would be the second month in a row we haven't heard anything. After, in February, they said that their developers were able to start playing with a dev build of the crafting mechanics. So we never know what's really happening. There's always a chance that something comes up and the devs get pulled off and have to take care of something else. Like these bugs that they have here, maybe the devs working on crafting had to do this stuff. We don't know. But there's a chance that it's being worked on and we're just not being told about these last 2 months of work because it's spoiler heavy or something. I don't know, but it's pretty clear that even without that, there's a lot of movement in core gameplay and a lot of movement in content. And I really hope that 4.2 has some of this stuff in it. No confirmation of that. All the stuff that we went over today, if they said it's in 4.1.1, then it's in 4.1.1. If they said it's coming in the future, it doesn't mean it's coming soon. But we can always extrapolate a little bit. And I hope today gave you a little more context and understanding as to what to expect. Thanks for watching.